Nothing's a secret, is it, anymore? Hello everybody. I don't know whether you can hear me, it's quite loud. We are at Aber Falls. We were going to do Snowdon, but the weather's fairly awful for Snowdon. We're hoping it's going to be better tomorrow. So we've called off Snowdon and we thought we'll go to Aber Falls and then we're going to go and look at a castle in a moment, and then we'll head over to Anglesey because we're staying on Anglesey as we always do. Anyway, Aber Falls. Way more spectacular than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was about 20 feet high. I had no idea. It must be at least 100 feet high. Now I know we've had a lot of rain, whether it's like this in the summer, but it's incredible. And I'll show you the walk up as we make our way back down. Back to the start for a moment though. We were hoping to do Snowdon this Friday the 6th of March, but the weather was appalling, so we decided to put it off for a day and go to Aber Falls, which is just off the A55. So as you come, there's the main road. I'll show you in a moment from the A55. In fact, you can see the A55 just up there. And then there is the sign for Aber Falls. I'm not even going to try and pronounce it in Welsh. And you head up that road, and then, as I said, we came back down that path there, but we actually just carried straight on. Anyway, as I say, you kind of come off the A55 there. This cafe was closed. I assume they're going to open in the summer. But you come off the A55 and then you turn left, head down this path, right down this road, and the road then becomes a car park. And it's free to park. If you park, as a lot of people did, up the hill where we were walking, it's £5. There are pay and display car parks. Didn't really pay attention to how you pay, but there are pay and display car parks. But this car park here is free of charge. So you head from the car park and you turn where I showed you that sign that said Aber Falls, quite helpful, and you walk up the road. It was incredibly busy. I can't remember what time it was, but I was surprised at just how busy it was. There was loads of traffic. Now it turns out there are other car parks further up the road, up this pathway, sort of before it becomes the path that you see here now. But there are a number of car parks. I think I said earlier on, they're all pay and display. They're all, I think, £5 for the day. But there were a lot of people driving up the road. So you're walking along and you're trying to fight for space with all of the cars. But eventually the road turns into this path and it all gets very, very quiet. And then as you're walking up the path, you suddenly realise that, hold on a moment, you can see the falls. Now, I think I said earlier on again that I really thought these were going to be about 20 feet high. And then as you're walking along, you suddenly see over in the distance, you think, are they the falls? Can I really see them? Are they really that high? And then you realise that you can hear them. And every time you turn a corner, you get a better view and you get to see it more. I was really excited. And then depending on how brave you are, you can get really close to them, on both sides actually. And obviously, me being me, I wanted to get as close as was humanly possible. So if you walk back the way you came, not far, 20-30 yards, you come to this bridge which goes across the river. So you can stand on the bridge and you get quite a great view of the falls themselves. Or you can cross over the other side and go back up to the falls and get a completely different view of them. Now, I didn't realise that there were a second falls. I can't find any name for them. I assume they're part of Aber Falls. But you cross that bridge I just showed you and you keep walking round the path, maybe less than half a mile, and you come to this second set of falls. Now, there's no getting away from the fact that they're smaller, but they're still stunning. So when we walked up to the falls, we actually walked from the village, from the car park, and we walked up a path, and it was a path. It was tarmac, very easy to walk up, a bit steep in parts, but very easy to walk up. And then, as you saw earlier, you come out at the falls, and we're now on the other half of the, I'm going to call it the circular route, because there is a second waterfall, which is kind of what you can see just up there, which we wanted to walk around. It's much, much smaller, but still incredibly pretty. And then we decided that we would take this route back, but it's entirely different. So if you find this kind of terrain difficult, I would say go down the way you came up. This is, I mean, there were seriously boggy bits. We've had to sort of make our way through really boggy, marshy bits. But it's still pretty damn cool. Right, we're about 4 miles in, which makes us about half a mile, maybe a mile from the car. And I just thought I'd show you, we're coming to the, I think, a critical point in this path. So you can still see the waterfalls over there, and that's how steep the hill is at the moment. We walked up that path over there, you can see the cars parked down there. And at some point, this steadily climbing and now flat path, oh, that's the sea, you can see, well, you can't see Anglesey because Anglesea's just over there. We are at some point going to have to go down, and I think we're really going to go down very, very quickly. While I think about it, we haven't been walking with a lovely couple, but we've been walking very near a lovely couple, and we were just talking to the chap at one particularly boggy point, and he said that he'd gone over 3 times. So again, if you have difficulty walking, stick to the path down there. I can't see what I'm pointing at, but there's the path going off up there, and it's tarmac or gravel. It's much, much easier to walk on. I say, he said he'd gone over 3 times. He was fine. I'm sure they were soft, gentle falls, but even so, it's a path to be careful on. So just up there as we were coming down, we turned right quite sharply onto this little path. I think the main path goes sort of just down there and then winds off over going down that way, but we turned right there and you end up on this path. And once again, as steep as this is, you can't help thinking it's going to get really steep in a moment. Our car is parked just down there, so that's where we've got to get to. So I was right, the path does get steep. I mean, this is kind of one pigeon step type walking down, trying to maintain as slow as you possibly can, otherwise you're just going to be running out of control. We've been slipping and sliding all over the place. It's very loose, and I'm still not entirely sure we're at the worst of it yet, looking at this, because we've still got to get down there, and it kind of drops off there in front of us. But the views that we have got over Anglesey, well, I'd say are like nothing I've ever seen before, largely because I've never been here before. We've got, what, Puffin Island over there, View Maris just there, and we could see all the way up towards Menai. Really, really spectacular, and it looks as though North Anglesey is in the sun, so that's where we're going to be heading as soon as possible. Definitely the right choice not to do Snowdon today. and I don't know whether it will come out on any pictures or videos, but the snow, we could see the snow. We couldn't see Snowdon from this walk, but we could see some high hills, and they are very, very snowy. There was snow last night, so I've got high hopes that we'll have snow at the top of Snowdon tomorrow if we are able to get up there. And then you find yourself pretty much at the bottom, and you're back in the village, and you turn left and back to the car park. It wasn't anywhere near as treacherous as I thought it was going to be. It is steep. There's no getting away from the fact it is steep, and you can see the nature of the path. And then you come to this little gate, which are completely missed on the way up. Turn left, you're back on the road and back towards your car. So this is where we started out. I didn't even see this when we were walking up. But this is the path, this is the road that turns into a path. And even in March, I don't know if you can see that, sort of going up there, there are cones marked out to protect or keep the road clear. No word of a lie, that's how busy it was. It's March the 6th, and it was so busy. I dread to think what it would be like in the summer. And now we're down. Am I pointing in the right place? That, if you can see him, that is the chap who fell 3 times. So he's obviously fallen way back behind us. And I guess that's due to the difficulty of the path. You can see the path going off up there, and then we walked all the way over that sort of crown and off towards the waterfall. And then we came out down there. And from there we decided to head over onto Anglesey. It was still a bit early for going to our caravan and checking in, so we went over to Porthwen Brickworks. So I said right at the start that we were going to head to a castle. We were going to Penryn Castle and Gardens, and I was hoping that you could get into the gardens and have a bit of a walk around. I didn't want to go in the castle. It looks very grand. It's not my cup of tea. I like old castles, Norman castles that are ruins, but this is still a very, very grand castle where you go in and look at the furniture. When we got there, it was £18 just to go in the grounds. Now, call me a tightwad, but 18 quid just to walk around the outside of the building felt a little bit steep to me, so we didn't bother, and we headed straight over to these brickworks. Now, I know we are March, but I've never seen it this wet, this damp around here. Wales has obviously had its fair share of rain. I'm not even sure I can get around there, because I am a great big pansy. I've also never been here when the tide has been so high. But the tide is right in. We're getting on for, 3 o'clock? And I think sundown today is over here is about 6 o'clock. Leeds. So again, no idea what this was. This was obviously something quite major. I mean, I don't know whether the workers would have lived here. I shall try and see if I can get lucky and find anything on Google. But like I say before, I've never been able to find anything about this site or what it is or what they did or anything about it, which is a shame, really. And the first time I came, it almost felt as though you were doing something bad, you were doing something illegal. There are no signs saying keep out. There are no signs, there are no signs telling you to stay away, but it's very, very inaccessible. But obviously now, lots of people know about it. What a day! How lucky are we? I really thought that the day was going to be written off. I think somewhere up there, yes, that's my mountain climbing son without a care in the world. By now we couldn't believe our luck. Having called off climbing Snowdon because the weather was so awful, we were now faced with this blue sky. It wasn't too cold, it wasn't windy. We spent hours here just exploring every single nook and cranny. So it might sound daft, but I assume all of this is man-made. This is definitely a sort of a man-made structure. Obviously he's up on a natural rock formation over there, but then we've got the entrance to the little harbour there. This is all very much chiselled out of what was probably kind of the real cliff face, and then they've built on top of it. I assume they were close to the sea for transport purposes, rather than trying to take it up the path and up to the top of the cliff the way we came in. I assume it would be much easier to take it straight out to sea. I was going to try and do a bit of a commentary about the site, but as I've already said, I don't know anything about it, either through research or my own knowledge. So there's not really a lot I can say other than the fact that, similar to what I said about in Vienna, it's not necessarily knowing, it's about walking around and just kind of looking at it and just thinking, this place used to be a hive of activity, it used to be a place of industry, and it was blooming difficult for us to get here today. So what would these workers have gone through to, did they live in that building over there rather than traipsing home every day? Did they traipse home every day and they didn't have cars or whatever, so where did they live? What was the purpose of the place? I am stood rather precariously. I keep turning around and realising that I could topple over at any moment because my balance isn't necessarily that great for some reason while I'm stood here. But I wanted to get a view of this rock formation, because that is absolutely lovely with that colouring and everything today, with the sun going down behind me. Obviously this used to be a retaining wall, I would guess, and it's collapsed many decades ago, but it's a testament to the engineering of the place that most of it is still standing. And I know I'm repeating myself, but when we called off the climb on Snowdon because the weather was so awful, we didn't think we'd end the day walking around near the beach. It's a bit chilly, but it's gorgeous. Anyway, a bit of a walk around the site with absolutely no knowledge. There's some metal. Obviously some kind of machinery or some kind of tool, but more than that, it could be a sink for all I know. And then we have these, I'm guessing they're kilns, sort of 3 of these kiln type buildings. I don't think I really want to look in here because I'm assuming it's going to be full of CRAP. It's not too bad actually. Some kind of structure. This one seems to be in better nick. Holes in the roof. Just got to get out now, haven't I? Without falling into the sea. And then the way this is built up into the cliff, I mean, it just goes, doesn't go back very far by the look of it, but it just goes up and up and up. Story after story after story up there. Again, no real sign of what it might have been or what it might have been used for. But as I say, as a place to, especially on a day like today, as a place to come and walk around and just kind of marvel at it all, it's worth an hour of your time. Again, no idea what these are. Were they water vats? These look like ovens to me. Some kind of outlet. You can almost see somebody sticking pizza in there. Now, I really don't know. And if I can tear son number one and his bow away, we're going to go and find a caravan, and it might be time for dinner. It's like I say, it's getting on for 4 o'clock. We've been up since, 6? We haven't eaten yet. So it's time to call it a day, I think. And call it a day we did. We drove the short distance over to Chemist Bay, and we checked in and we got all our bags out the car, and then we went straight into town to buy dinner. We had a beautiful sunset. We hung around on the beach for a while watching the sun go down. We just, again, couldn't believe how gorgeous the day had turned out and how lovely it was. We turned in relatively early, aside from the fact that we got up stupidly early to drive over to Wales and try and miss the traffic. But we knew we had an early start the following morning. Hopefully you've already watched the video about climbing Snowdon, and we did the pig and the miners track. But we knew that we had to get there as early as possible in order to get a place in the car park, which we completely failed to do. But that's a story for another video, quite literally. So I'm going to leave you here. I'm going to say thank you for watching once again. I really appreciate it. I hope to be doing a video where I take a trip down memory lane next, so we'll see how that pans out. I'll leave you now with a couple of images of the sunset in Chemist Bay, and I'll see you soon.